U.S. President Donald Trump promised to deport 1 million undocumented migrants every year. So far, the administration is way below that target. According to numbers from the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, nearly 200,000 have been deported. But what's the impact on the U.S. economy when thousands of people leave the workforce?
A large-scale immigration raid last week in the U.S. state of Georgia has drawn international attention, in part because it took place at a sprawling multi-billion-dollar construction site for an electric vehicle battery plant co-owned by South Korean giants Hyundai Motor Group and LG Energy Solution. Caught in the crosshairs, more than 300 South Korean nationals who, according to U.S. authorities, have been working illegally. The raid is indicative of the clash of two priorities of the second Trump administration, a very public escalation of immigration enforcement, as well as an aggressive push to attract investment into the United States to reinvigorate the industrial base and boost U.S. employment in the key industries of the 21st century.
Homeland Security investigations, in coordination with our law enforcement partners, executed a judicial search warrant as part of an ongoing criminal investigation into allegations of unlawful employment practices and serious federal crimes. This operation underscores our commitment to protecting jobs for Georgians and Americans, ensuring a level playing field for businesses that comply with the law.
The enforcement operation targeting South Korean nationals has led to international outrage, but there have been hundreds other less high-profile raids which are also having an effect on the U.S. bottom line. Take California, for example, a $4 trillion economy that relies heavily on immigrant labor to pick its bountiful crops and in construction in a state where houses and infrastructure are in short supply. According to recent studies, about 20% of California's 10.5 million immigrants are undocumented. The study says the state is at risk of losing up to $278 billion of its GDP if mass deportations and other tough immigration measures continue as many undocumented workers go into hiding.
This has been very harmful for me because the truth is, it is very stressful. I am very stressed out. My head and my body ache because I am used to going to work. The truth is there is a lot of fear.
Across the United States, according to the American Immigration Council, undocumented workers contributed nearly $90 billion in state and federal taxes and spending in 2023. The group is also out with a new report saying nearly half of the Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants or their children. The U.S. has long relied on immigration to help staff its dynamic and diverse economy, and while some U.S. citizens are underemployed, unemployment historically is low. And many Americans do not want to do the jobs that immigrants, legal or otherwise, tend to do, whether it's picking fruit, packing meat, or cleaning offices and houses. The Trump administration's actions are increasingly coming down to a choice between immigration or economic growth.
Okay, to talk more on the government actions to deport undocumented migrants and the impact on the economy, we welcome Andrew Arthur. He is a resident fellow in law and policy at the Center for Immigration Studies and former immigration judge, and joins us from Charlotte. From Atlanta, Charles Kuck is an adjunct professor of law at Emory University and the University of Georgia. Art Estopinan is president of the Estopinan Group. He joins us from Minneapolis in Maryland, and here in Washington, D.C., Abel Nunez is executive director of CARECEN, an organization helping Latino immigrants. Thanks, everyone, for being with us. Charles Kuck, let me start with you. Let's talk about that ICE raid that I was talking about a moment ago on that Hyundai plant in Georgia. I mean, that's a major corporation, the Hyundai Corporation. This is a plant which manufactures EV batteries. Some of those arrested are your clients. What can you tell us about this case?
Well, let's be clear. This is not a plant that makes batteries because the plant is not finished yet. These were employees that are actually building the plant. ICE's warrant that they used, the affidavit they used to get the warrant to do this raid, was focused on 4 Latino workers. And it's clear from my conversations with folks in the know that they were only intending to literally go after the construction workers on the site. And when they got there, they realized there was a lot of Koreans working. They didn't even bring a Korean translator with them. I don't know how they forgot that this was a Korean company. But instead of individually looking at each person's status, they simply decided to arrest 300 Koreans and sort it out later. Well, it turns out most of these Koreans were legitimately in the plant under a B1 business visa for doing after-sales service and installation, as well as under the ESTA B visa, which is for, again, after-sales service and installation. These were the experts that were installing the equipment purchased abroad to run the plant. So this raid, I think, was unintentional in its consequence, unintentional in its scope, but it certainly has had a dramatic international effect.
Right, Charles, you say it was unintentional, but arresting 300 Koreans who were working legally there, is that a violation of the law?
Well, it's tough to say whether ICE violates the law when they're carrying out what they believe to be legitimate enforcement activities. The arrest of the Koreans was apparently a decision made on the spot, without really looking at what was going to be the consequence. Understand, this enforcement action was done by the HSI part of ICE. That's the employer enforcement, sanctions enforcement folks. But they're not experts on immigration law outside of employer sanctions. It is now the other part of ICE, which are called ERO, which are making the individualized determinations about whether to release these people. Several people have been released, and I know, as you know, the Korean government is negotiating to basically remove all those individuals from the United States to get them out of jail while ICE makes these individualized determinations.
Okay, let's go to Andrew Arthur. Andrew, Hyundai is a South Korean company, and a South Korean lawyer said these conglomerates are bringing huge investments into the United States. He says there aren't enough visas to sponsor these technicians who are working there, as Charles pointed out, to assemble this plant, to assemble this factory. This lawyer in South Korea blamed the United States visa system. Now, as a former judge, what is your view?
Well, as Mr. Kuck will tell you, both the B1 visa and the ESTA that these individuals purportedly came in on are very limited visas. And to the degree that they allow you to perform manual labor, they are very specific with respect to that. And I would actually take slight issue with something that Mr. Kuck said before. HSI agents are special agents, 1811s. Those are individuals who are trained in immigration law. I used to be a trial attorney with the INS. I was a associate general counsel at the agency. And I can tell you that special agents have the same immigration training, the same immigration knowledge that ICRO agents have. They know who's removable and who's not. Now, there's definitely some questionable, issues on the periphery about this. But, this particular action at this plant does raise some significant issues. If there are people who are performing manual labor, they have to either be authorized United States citizens, or they have to have the appropriate visa. So, yeah, I think in a situation like that, the plant is not open, it's not operating, they're not making batteries, as Mr. Kuck indicated. They're building the plant. And there are plenty of people in the great state of Georgia who are more than competent in performing construction labor and in performing technical labor. So the question becomes why these particular individuals were working there. Now, press reports indicate that they were there working for contractors and subcontractors, not actually Hyundai itself. So, and again, that's an issue. Hyundai is responsible for who contractors bring in, but they have only very limited liability for those individuals. So I think that it's best in this case to wait until all the facts come out, until a judge has the opportunity to hear the case and make a determination on that.
Andrew, to your point that there could be competent people, there could be qualified people to do these jobs that the Koreans were doing there. If that is the case, why were they granted visas in the first place?
So again, that goes to the nature of the visas that they had. B1 visas generally are visitor for business visas that allow you to attend conferences and things like that. Generally, it's not the sort of thing that allows you to perform manual labor in the United States, whether you want to call it technical or not.
Yeah.
If you're working with your hands, by definition, it's manual labor. And with respect to the ESTA, it's even more limited than that. So, the question becomes why exactly they were there, who brought them in, what the nature of their visa was, under what terms they were allowed into the United States. Those are all things that need to be determined. And this is the sort of case in which many people jump to snap judgment.
Right.
Look, Donald Trump wants foreign businesses to expand in the United States, and then they go arresting people. True, we want foreign businesses to expand in the United States because this is the best country in the world to do business in. But you have to follow our laws when you're here.
Okay, Charles, a quick response from you to that.
Yeah, actually, I do know the details of what happened here because I do represent some of these companies and the individuals involved. The reality is the equipment that was being installed into the plant is only made outside the United States. Construction of battery plants are generally done by companies that know how to construct battery plants. And the training required to install this highly technical and specialized equipment is done abroad for these individuals. Now, these companies could have actually hired U.S. workers, train them for 3 to 5 years, and then allow them to come in the United States and build the plant, or they can use the terms of the B1 visa, which does allow and has historically allowed for after-sales service and installation or blue-collar work to be done. And these guys were here for 1 month, 2 months, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get that done.
Right.
Now nobody is working on this plant, and the plant's opening is going to be delayed for an indefinite period of time until these companies can get their labor back into the United States to install their equipment.
Right. I'm going to get to Abel Nunez. Abel, good to see you. A number of analysts have pointed out that these crackdowns by immigration authorities will be detrimental to the United States economy. And we've heard this before, especially in sectors like agriculture, in hospitality, as well as in construction. Now, there's some figures out. The nonpartisan Baker Institute at Rice University in Texas says the mass deportations have led to fewer jobs and lower wages for U.S.-born workers. Its report says forcibly removing 500,000 workers contributes to 44,000 fewer jobs in the United States. That's for United States American-born workers. So there is a knock-on effect. Is the United States shooting itself in the foot here?
I think so. I mean, the numbers clearly dictate that we will need immigration to continue to be a vibrant economy. And I think that, you know, one of the things that we can agree is that the system is broken and we need to fix it. But allowing everybody in or deporting everyone is not the answer. We need to come together and we need to think about what's best for this nation. But having mandates for immigration officers to arrest 3,000 people a day is not one that helps the U.S. As a matter of fact, it creates situations like this because there's an enormous pressure that's building on the force itself to arrest people. Because if they're not arresting people and making it public, then the president cannot go to their base and saying that he's meeting the promises that he made on the campaign trail. I think that this is highly politicized. It's always been highly politicized, but now it's actually causing damage to the U.S. economy, now and for the future.
Estopinan, a report from Oxford Economics says the United States GDP will be 0.25% lower because of Trump's policies, and in that was also included his tariff policies. Now, that assessment was made before passage of the big, beautiful bill, as it's known, which actually allocates another $175 billion for even more immigration enforcement. And the institute that I mentioned a moment ago, the Baker Institute, they say that the figure, this is the GDP figure, will be more likely like 2.6% to 6.2% loss over the next decade. So looking at those numbers and what it could do to the American economy, do you think President Trump needs to reassess his policies?
Well, Anand, as you know, as we all know, President Trump was elected in part, besides improving the economy, to control, to close the border, which he did, the border with Mexico, and also to deport the illegal, criminal, and terrorist immigrants, illegal immigrants that are here in this country. So it should not be of any surprise to anyone that DHS is itching towards their 100,000 beds to deport illegal immigrants. They have 40,000, around 40,000 right now around the country, and they're working towards the goal of 100,000 beds for illegals to be deported. That's the reality. As President Trump has said, you know, if you're here in this country illegally, just self-deport. Go back to your country and apply for a work visa or apply for some sort of other legal status. But at this time, DHS and Border Patrol and Customs and Border, they're just getting started. With all of the funds that they have, as you correctly mentioned, this is just the beginning. And the reality is that a lot of businesses are going to, because of AI, artificial intelligence, they're going to automate their processes. So it's true that immigrants. I am a Hispanic American of Cuban parents, and my parents are very grateful to this country for the freedom and democracy that they were deprived in Cuba. But the reality is that they came here legally. The United States knew who they were. And now, because of Biden's open border, we don't know who these people are. And many of them are criminals and terrorists, and they have to be deported.
Charles Kuck, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, who's leading this crackdown on undocumented migrants, he says that Americans will fill the jobs that are being done by undocumented migrants right now. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Since President Trump has came into office, 100% of job gains have gone to American workers, as millions of foreign workers who are here illegally have left the country.
What do you make of that statement, Charles?
Well, sure, people have left. There's no doubt about it. They don't want to be arrested by this administration and put into one of the hellhole jails that they run. But at the same time, the jobs aren't being filled by Americans. They're just disappearing. And we've seen that in the most recent jobs report when, for the first time since 2020, we have more people looking for jobs than we actually have jobs. 2 years ago, we had 5 million open jobs, even with the amount of immigration that we had. The reality is when 1 million people leave, that means 1 million consumers leave the country. That leads to a shrinking of your economy. So at the end of the day, Miller does in fact understand immigration law, but he doesn't appear to understand economics. And the economics of this are bad long-term for the United States. There's no country in the history of the world that's had a growing economy with a shrinking population.
Estopinan, I want to give you another example of what these policies are causing. I mean, there was an owner of a concrete plant in Florida. He was quoted in the New York Times, and he said that even if he offered higher wages, he doubts he would attract American-born workers because he thinks they're more inclined to build long-term careers in skilled trades. Doesn't he have a point?
No, absolutely. I mean, listen, I come from an immigrant community. I totally get it. And immigrants work from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. I get the fact that without a robust immigrant population, our economy will not grow to its potential. I mean, I totally get that. But the reality is that we need to know who are these people that are here illegally. I mean, I believe that we need immigration reform, and Congress needs to enact a bipartisan immigration reform. My point is, Anand, we cannot have illegal immigrants in this country that we don't know who they are. But the reality is, no one is saying that. I mean, immigrants are the hardest working people, and this country was made from immigrants. But we need to know who they are, and if they're criminals, if they're part of the Tren de Aragua from Venezuela or other criminal gangs, they need to be deported immediately because they're harming the average Americans, the working class Americans. We cannot continue with that.
Yeah. Abel Nunez, there was some news we got over the past few days, and that is that the United States agency that deals with applications for green cards, that's permanent residence, and citizenship, will soon have its own police force, which can arrest applicants. They will scour these application forms that these applicants are filling out. If they find mistakes, if they find intentional mistakes or errors, they can arrest those people. They can even arrest the lawyers who are helping those people if these forms are not filled in honestly or correctly. I mean, the United States already has myriad police forces. What impact will this new group have?
Well, I mean, the entirety of the policy is set to really close all potential avenues for people to come in legally into the country, right? This administration has made it clear that they don't want immigrants, particularly those that are coming from the Southern Hemisphere. I mean, this is something that Trump has been very vocal about. And we have to remember, again, you know, Art, we know each other, we respect each other, but I can't wait to see AI picking lettuce, AI picking tomatoes. That's not going to happen. Immigrants are needed here, and it is up to Congress to fix the immigration laws. They've been kicking the can down the road, and we are in this situation. But deporting everyone, because I don't think Trump has a magic crystal ball that can see who's Fenderagua. You have to investigate. That means that you have to have police work. The police work that actually immigration officers were doing, but now they're just being arrest everyone. They are masked. It looks like a police state. I'm in Washington, D.C., and it is really scary that, a lot of the situations that Art saying that his family left from Cuba is what we're beginning to live here. And that is an affront to our democracy, our affront to how we, what our values are as Americans.
Go ahead, Art, you want to say something?
Yeah, but how about the agricultural visas that allows the agricultural workers to come to this country, doing their job, which is very hard. I totally get it. But I mean, how about that? I mean, they're here illegally. We know who they are. They're here illegally with the agricultural visas. What's wrong with continuing that program?
That's the thing. It's not enough. The system is not set up for our current economic, our economy. And we have to have a system that meets the needs of our economy for today, not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago, now. And unfortunately, it's not doing that. But deporting everyone is not going to do the job. It's actually going to make us weaker.
Okay. Andrew, I just want to get your view on the establishment of this new police force that I was talking about a moment ago. And as I said, there are already multiple police forces specifically tackling immigration issues right now. And it's led to allegations, accusations, if you like, from certain community leaders that what this is doing is that it's spreading terror among immigrant communities.
So I think that what you're talking about here is terror that's very much being driven by many on the left. You see Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles making outrageous claims about ICE showing up in, hospitals and at funerals. You see Governor Gavin Newsom of California talking about ICE raids. You see Governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, talking about ICE raids. And you see the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, talking about ICE raids. If there's fear that's being sown in the community, it's actually being driven by the president's opponents, his most vehement opponents. According to the calculations that we've done at the center, about 1.6 million unauthorized aliens have left the United States since Donald Trump took office. Again, we heard about 200,000 physical removals, but that 1.6 million is a much bigger issue. Because those are people who understand that they need to leave the United States before being removed. Mr. Kuck and I have both been in this field long enough to remember the way that things used to be. People didn't come to the United States and stay here permanently. They came to the United States for 6 months. They worked, they made money, they went back home. When the border was a lot more open, they'd turn around and come back in. So we're seeing a similar phenomenon to what's happened in the past. In fact, according to the Congressional Budget Office, about 1.2 million people left the United States in FY 2023 and FY 2024 under the Biden administration. Nobody was really forcing them to leave. If I could also be heard on the agricultural issue and the economic issue, because I know that there was a question about Stephen Miller's economic acuity, and I can't speak to that. But I can speak to economics, having studied it at the University of Virginia. And I can tell you right now that the important thing when it comes to the health of an economy isn't necessarily GDP. I can hire my kid to sit in a room and stare at the wall for 8 hours, and that technically boosts GDP. What really matters is productivity. And unfortunately, many American corporations have become addicted to cheap labor, and so they haven't invested in those productivity driving machines that they could purchase. I think of all the people here, I'm the only one who's ever worked on a farm. I've actually, worked on a reaper. I've actually herded cattle. And I can tell you right now that it's not really that difficult a job when you actually have the right tools to do it. What we need to do is to invest in those tools. And when we talk about the agricultural economy, because I hear about lettuce and tomatoes all the time, at the height during the summer, about 1.5 million people in a country of 340 million works in agriculture. This isn't 1870 anymore, when 1/3 of all Americans worked on farms. And only about 2 to 4% of the unauthorized population in the United States works on farms. The work that they do can generally be very easily mechanized. We need to have our farmers invest in that. If we need tax policy or tax changes to do that, do it. But it's no reason to countenance a population of what Art referred to before as unknown individuals. We don't know their backgrounds, staying here in order to do that.
Okay, I want to get to Charles. Charles, what's your response to that?
Well, first of all, how old do you think I am? But I actually own a farm. I'm on a farm 4 days a week. Farm work is hard, it's difficult, and it is really hard to find people to work. I'm just telling you, that's just the reality in 2025 in Southeast Tennessee. But as to your question on the law enforcement by USCIS, that is actually illegal. USCIS has no legal authority under its forming statute to have a law enforcement function. That policy memo will be struck down by the courts, I suggest, within the next 60 days. There is an enforcement mechanism of an immigration. It's called ICE. This is ICE's job to issue arrest warrants, to investigate fraud. It's not USCIS's job. That is done more as a public service announcement to discourage people from filing fraud, which nobody should file. There should be no fraud, but there is. And ICE should do a better job of finding that fraud and referring it to the U.S. attorneys and ICE to make those arrests. But at the end of the day, I think everybody here is in agreement that Congress has abandoned their job. Yeah. This is not a party issue. Both parties have done this. Right. Both parties have let this immigration rot go on for 35 years. Yeah. We're still operating under a legal immigration system that was last looked at in 1990. Right. Most of us carried around cell phones in bags. We didn't have personal computers. Yeah. We didn't live in the economy that we live in today. So as Congress continues to do nothing, we will have problems like the Hyundai plant, where foreign employers need to get people here.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop you there, Charles. We have run out of time. But thanks to all of you for being with us. That's where we need to leave it. I'm Arun Naidu in Washington.